Series. Into the lead. Bond gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag. Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are 5 wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordan Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they're going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas. Get your foot there. He's got it. He's got it. He's got it. Get there. No. Canvas is going to win.
On the surface, Spa made it appear that it was all over bar the shouting. But with the final race in the Enduro Cup taking place this evening, all 3 classes can still see the points lead change hands. On top of that, the Teams Championship has a scant 8 points between Composite Performance Iceman and Muradness Green. Let's see who takes home the crown as we get ready to watch round 12 of the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. And you'll see it all live here on FTF.GG. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Joey Atterbury and Josh Mendoza. Behind the scenes is our director, Zach Johnson. Joey, we have a classic way to finish out the season. They tend to do this here in Autobahn, coming to Road Atlanta.
Well, it's usually typical that an IMSA-type series would come to Road Atlanta to finish out the season. It's one of the best endurance racing tracks in all of North America. 12 turns, a little over 2.5 miles in length, and let me tell you, it gets pretty narrow. There's some fast sections, there's some slow sections, and always the sweeping turn 1 on lap 1. Watch for people getting shoved out on the outside, up over the hill at turn 3, and then always the most crucial, what I think, turn 7 down there, that launch down the back straightaway to the top end speed, and then your biggest and best passing opportunity. Hard on the brakes going into turns 10A and 10B to pretty much round out the lap here.
Now, as for the championship up at the top, we did mention that it is pretty much done, at least for the regular championship. We'll talk about the Enduro Cup in a bit. Olsen has clinched it. Billy Smith and Carter Kundinger are going to be trying to fight for the second position. Dion Follow also in there, tied for that third position there in the points for the prototype. So basically between those drivers to try to make out best of the rest. Now, in the GTP, it is down between a battle for second between Shirazi, Jew, Haley, Robertson, and Cast. Booth is well clear of them at this point. There's a lot of them fighting for that one out there. And then if we go to the GT AMs, Schmidt, Rattray, Hunter, and Margarella are all vying for the overall championship. So the actual championship is still up for grabs in that one. That said, Schmidt only needs 6th or better within class to clinch it today. So he's in a very good position to come away with it. Margarella is impressive considering he finally got a win last race and still barely keeps himself in the hunt into this last one. But it looks like they have gridded up. So let's go through the starting order. Josh, I believe you've got our prototype grid.
Yes, I do. Over here, we got Nathan Olsen on the pole once again, continuing to start himself off at a great position with Paul Darling on his outside. Peter Houston and Billy Smith II, Carter Kundinger and Robert Tinsley, Joshua Wolf, Mo Islam, Vance Val, and Dominic Durenberg. It's going to round out our top 10. Leif Peterson and Robert Kansian, and Eddie Layton, Chris Sherburne. Rounds out our prototype grid, Joe.
Then for the pole on the GT Pros, Ross Booth, no surprise there, up at the top with Johan Shirazi. In second place, Bradley Haley will start from P3. Young Park starts 4th, followed by Wayne Castile on the inside of the next row. Pole for the AMs is Robert Rattray. It'll be Christopher Pies, 7th overall. Luke Schmidt, the next of the AMs, back there behind Rattray on the next row, but 8th overall. Ryan Robertson starts 9th, and then 3rd of the AMs will be Franco Margarella, one of the long shots for the championship in that class, Joey.
Yeah, here in 11th spot, we got Eric Thomas. In 12th, Robert Cast. Ed Eisenring. I'm sorry, Ed. I can never pronounce your last name. Adam Satterfield there in 14th. Corey Ensing. Andrew Lunsford. Zach Ginn. Jason Iverson. Tom Hammond in 19th. And Mark Kidrowski in 20th.
The last few will be Trent Brown in 21st, Sheldon Rosenbaum in P22. Boyd Payne is next in 23rd, followed by Patrick McDaniel. Nick Olas will start in 25th. Then it's Sean Reese, and Ryan Washaleski was supposed to grid up in 27th, but I do not see him out there. What if he's going to have to start from pit lane? Jimbo Pfeiffer will start in 28th. Shane Hunter and Nick Davis rounds out your 30-car GT field. 44 of them overall. And this is not a very long lap out here, Joey. So they're going to have to think on their feet very quickly once they start lapping each other.
Well, yeah, the multi-class traffic is always a problem at Road Atlanta. There's several funnel points, and there's several areas that you just can't go too wide through. One of them being Turn 5, which the prototype field is all the way through. GT field is going through it right now, and it's always a funnel going in, narrow single file on entry, and then if you jump up on those Turn 5 exit curbs too much, I guarantee you we're going to see cars spinning off into the wall.
No doubt. And honestly, that first part of the lap there, Josh, for those prototypes, that's got to be make or break once they hit that traffic. Because I've seen so many times where if drivers do get aggressive like Joey described and throw away the race trying to make that ill-advised pass through there.
Yeah, it can be easily a mistake can be made going too wide in the wrong section of the track, going over blind hills, especially through the S's. You have that blind hill on corner exit. It's very easy for you to think you have a good position to go, and the next thing you know, you get too aggressive. You got an hour and a half here. You don't need to make the move immediately. You got to be conservative but aggressive when it counts.
It looks like they are getting ready to go here as the pace car takes them through the final chicane of 10A and B. And Nolson is trying to warm those tires up with these rather cool temperatures out on track. Pace car is in. He waits patiently. He has control of the field. There it is. Green flag is out. Gets a big jump over Paul Darling. But behind him, it looks like Billy Smith is on it very quickly as he starts to sprint up into third, trying to get ahead of Houston, almost managing to go around the outside up into turn 3. This is going to be the big choke point, but it looks like they're going to get single file. Let's go back to Joey for the GT start.
Just got the green flag, and Ross Booth has a really nice jump over Johan Shirazi right now. Gets a little bit narrow up here at the exit of turn 1, but really clean start for the GTs up over into turn 3 right now. This is always a tricky jump the curb over the crest and downhill into the S's, but really nice start for most of this GT field.
Checking to see if we got any problems behind them, and I'm not seeing any cars spun around, so really good to see that it looks like the biggest trouble portions have been made it through here at the start. Although as soon as I say that, I think Eisenring just had an off in turn 5, but seems to be able to rejoin the track. So again, very good news for the 929 team. Already our prototypes are completing the first lap, and Olsen is making good with the clear air. He's about a second ahead of Darling here, Josh.
Yeah, he's just working his way away from the field. He's trying to establish as much room as he can, because once he reaches those GT cars, it's going to be all about traffic management. Wants to have as much of a gap while he has this clean air out in front of him. And with single file racing, it's hard to develop a gap. Got to make sure you go and get it now.
Yeah, you can lose so much time, especially here through these S's. Expect us to be bringing that up constantly. Could make the pit stops critical. And we had a major off towards the front of the field for Bradley Haley. He's going to be able to rejoin in that 428 Audi, only down to 5th. Whoa, and a spin ahead of him. That's going to be Castile.
That's Wayne Castile coming up, getting loose. These tires are still he's got to be careful. Don't back up into traffic too much there, Wayne. But these tires are still getting up to temperature, just loose, which the Porsche is known for. Came around on him. And you're right, Joe. Bradley Haley was forced 3 wide coming to start finish and was off. That's what kind of made the bottleneck of Wayne jumping up there.
Yeah, it was unfortunately 4 wheels into the grass. And I think I saw Corey Ensing also, unfortunately, in the grass out of the S's. So I think he must have had some sort of issue there on that second lap too. So they made it through the first lap, and it was the second one that wound up being the trouble spot for everybody. Meanwhile, Ross Booth also kind of scampering away from everybody, but Shirazi's doing likewise. He has distanced himself from Young Park by more than 2 seconds, in fact. So it's a bit of a two-horse race here, Joey, at the front of that field.
We got to remember, too, that Ross has already clinched up that championship, so he's just out there for a victory drive right now. And look at the lineup behind him. It really starts with Young Park, Christopher Pies, Robert Rattray, which is the first in AM. But, Joe, one thing I'm noticing, it is Porsche Central out here at the front of the field in GT.
Oh, but somebody else has stopped once again. It was at Castile for a second time. Sean Reese is going slow as well in that same portion in the 007 Lamborghini, so I'm not sure what caused that car to have to take a tow, but that was coming out of the chicane. That is a bit of a pinch point sometimes up under that bridge. Maybe we'll get some more information later on exactly what happened there at the back of that field. You can see how quickly they're approaching the GTs, though, especially those that have had trouble, because just as we looked at the back of them going up the hill, so is Nathan Olson.
Yeah, he's going down the hill right now, quickly chasing up that GT car. He's going to have a moment here to make a decision. Out of the S's here, just gets wide. That car was slow, off track. Does he have damage? Flashing his lights, letting him know he's going to go to the inside here. Last lap, he was about a second faster than Paul Darling, but the lap before, Paul was quicker than Nathan.
Yeah, and Darling's going to get a nice easy road through on turn 7 thanks to Reese watching out and seeing them coming. He knows his race is already wrecked. He doesn't need to be getting in their way at all and isn't racing anybody. We'll see if it comes back to him a little bit later. So Nathan Olson continuing to plow forward. By the way, I was incorrect. It was just Smith and Kundinger that are fighting for that second position. I was looking at the wrong part of my script. But it's 20 points apart, so that is still pretty wide, even though this is double points tonight for an Enduro.
Well, and speaking of the points, I'm looking at this GTM battle, and we pretty much have our top 3 in the championship running first, second, and third in GTM, albeit there are some pro cars mixed in, so have to keep an eye. Luke Schmidt is is behind Robert Rattray. So Robert Rattray doing what he needs to do to try to take away that championship, Joe. But I think some more action needs to happen in the AM field. It's staying pretty close between the top 3.
Absolutely. An interesting note about that battle as well is that all of the 4 that are in it still, except for one, have had wins so far this season. Shane Hunter, 3rd in the points, and hasn't had a victory. In fact, his highest finish is a couple of 3rd places so far. He's just been that consistent.
Well, and unfortunately for Shane, I'm looking back, and he's sitting right now 25th overall in GT. So I wonder if he had a problem at the start, as he's getting held up right now as well. Just, it's not the day that Shane Hunter wants, I'll tell you that.
Certainly not seeming like it as we continue to watch the 33 there. There's Shane now on your screen. Yeah, just has been getting the raw stick this lap with the traffic going by. You can see how frantic those prototypes can be at times, knowing this is going to be one of the best chances to take a position. That Nick Olas, I think we saw on screen, with Peter Houston diving around the outside of turn 1.
Yeah, there was a lot of close conflict racing right there. The whole GT field was right there in front of all the prototypes, and they were trying to work their way through. It is quickly becoming just darting left, right, and center. Passes happening. Not sure when they're going to happen, but it seems like every time it does happen, it just leaves you on the edge of your seat if they're going to be able to make it through there without any issues, especially through the S's.
On board with Carter Kundinger now. He's chasing Billy Smith. It's about a second up the road. You can just, there he is now as he dives out of the way, almost slaloming through these GT cars and trying to play catch up. Houston also trying to keep him honest. Oh, and wow, Houston made a huge dive behind him. We couldn't see it on screen, but ambitious move to go by Jimbo Pfeiffer and keep touch with Carter Kundinger in that 4th spot.
Speaking of Jimbo, he's the only McLaren in the field, Joe. I always love roasting hot dogs off the back end of that thing.
Yeah, I got to watch the brand new McLaren in GT4 this weekend. Sadly, only for one race back in SRO, as it had wrecked out and didn't get to compete anymore. very beautiful looking car. Can't wait to hopefully see it someday here in iRacing. We'll see if that can happen. But back once again up the hill with a Porsche just behind the Bimmer, trying to see if that's actually not a McLaren that he's in. He switched over to the BMW.
That's what I was just noticing. I just went to him, and Jimbo, you betrayed me. No McLaren on the screen. All of a sudden, a BMW.
Well, I believe they are allowed to change cars at some points during this, but he might get a penalty here. I think this might be after the point at which they have been allowed to change cars. And with it being the last race of the season, this kind of makes sense for him. He gets to experiment because he already kind of knows it's going to be a little bit meaningless to get the penalty. This just kind of lets him feel out if he does want to switch cars.
Well, and I also think that the McLaren is a handful, and Jimbo's proven that throughout the entire season. The BMW, one of the more docile cars, and Jimbo actually having a pretty clean race from what I'm seeing.
That's Nick Davis, who's going to go around the outside of him. Jimbo didn't fight that one hard, facilitates the pass, and that puts Nick up into 19th. But that was an AM driver overtaking a pro. So, yes, overall position changed, but not within class position, which is the important thing for the pair of them points-wise.
Right now, I'm looking at Kundinger. Sorry, Kundinger and Smith are right on top of each other trying to get through this field. They've almost gotten wrecked a couple of times from GT cars, and they have been within a second, if not less, trying to narrow that gap between the two of them.
Yeah, they're still working their way through the bulk of the fields. It's only past 9th spot that he just passed there did Billy Smith. Got a great exit, honestly, and is starting to put a little bit more distance between himself and Carter, which is really what he needs here. Although, honestly, I think if he stays in the position directly behind Carter, he's still going to hold on to that spot there. So Kundinger needs to be multiple positions ahead of him as he's putting the pressure on down the front stretch, but he's going to get boxed in as the Porsche of Robert Rattray is in the wrong place at the wrong time.
This is that multi-class traffic, Joe. Turn 3, another one of these narrow spots. This is the front of the GT field that the prototypes are working through. So, the drivers are aware, but let me tell you, that doesn't make it less narrow.
Absolutely. So Kundinger now finds himself on the rear guard because remember I mentioned Peter Houston. P5 driver is suddenly on the attack, although it ebbs and flows so quickly. The traffic now holding up Smith yet again, and it's 1, 2, 3 all vying for the final podium spot along the backstretch. They overtake Young Park now that they are on the straightaway, and it's looking like a very good run for Carter Kundinger here. Josh, let's see if he tries it into the chicane.
Draft is so powerful here. He's going to take every advantage of it. He's going to be able to outbrake. No, we see one off track right on our screen. That's a Ferrari. Looks like he's going to tow back to the pits.
Sheldon Rosenbaum. Sorry. Oh, yeah, that's a Porsche as well. And trying to make out who that is.
Nicholas Davis. Nicholas Davis made contact with Sheldon Rosenbaum, and I think Jimbo Pfeiffer then made contact with Nicholas Davis. All dominoes.
Ooh, things once again coming alive, and Houston making some aggressive moves in traffic just to keep himself in this. But so far, it's worked out quite well for him. There's still plenty of racing left to go, so he needs to be careful about trying to make those moves too frequently, or it could bite him, trying to get a little bit of a pull off of that GT car from Ross Booth. But Kundinger runs out of racetrack by the time they hit turn 6.
Got 3 cars under a blanket here. We're going to go down this straightaway. How much is draft going to matter going into the final turn here? Who's going to outbrake? We saw Kundinger. He looked like he wanted to go and make that outbraking move, but decided best of it. It's a long race. He doesn't want to try to make an aggressive move like that, maybe make enemies early on to the race. He's going to try and do it cleanly and when it's best.
Exactly. Carter takes another little peek down to the chicane, but decides against it. He's still making sure to try and keep Billy Smith thinking hard about all of this. Smith needs to just get to the finish within close range of that O2 machine, and he's got second in the points hunt wrapped up. Now, the other thing we're wondering about is, will we have these LMP2s back next season, though? Ooh, this is really good there for a brief moment from Kundinger, but a pass, Josh, into turn 3 is always super sketchy, so I don't blame him for backing off.
Yeah, no, it can be super sketchy. Now, what are your thoughts on the idea that maybe Carter is sitting here, he's not actually intending to pass, but rather trying to make it look like he wants to force any sort of error out of him, make him go off track and set him way farther back, and maybe just pressing the intimidation button might be a better strategy than just passing him and letting him ride behind him.
I honestly think that could be part of what we're seeing here. Yeah, if he can get him to make an error and chuck the car into the wall, that's kind of what Carter needs in this situation, is just because he needs so many points. So yeah, a good point there. Just instead of actually trying to make those passes, just make himself a bit of a threat and try to get Billy Smith to give up the championship position himself. Well, they come down the hill. After the first 15 minutes of this race, we should see the pit window open probably in the next 10 minutes or so. They will have to pit twice in this series for fuel. And the other question in that is, will they take tires? It's probably going to be a yes, since they've changed the rules recently and they can take tires and fuel at the same time. But also, I wonder, with these cooler temperatures, if it'll be worth trying to keep them on with them being worked up a bit.
I don't think so, Joe. I think that if you got the opportunity to take fresh rubber and you got an unlimited tire budget, you might as well charge the credit card.
Yeah, that's a good point. They don't have a limited tire set in this series, and not really an issue out there. So I'm with you. I'm expecting pretty much everybody to take tires and be on their merry way. It's still close between Carter and Billy down into the chicane, but this time he does not show himself in the mirrors. This is a pretty good run, though, here, Josh. Talk about getting him to throw the car away into turn one. It'd be a good spot to make something dangerous happen.
Yeah, if you get off the track into turn one, it's dangerous. Oh, big move there. Looking like he's going to try and do a crossover type move, maybe try and set up something. Oh, going into turn three here, not going to be able to do it, but this might give him a better opportunity through the S's to get some speed. But as you said, losing into turn number one is really difficult. You get on that grass, it's so hard to get it woed down before you hit that tire barrier and inevitably cause some level of damage that just makes you no longer a part of the picture anymore.
And they don't have any sort of spare car in this series, so whatever damage you get, well, you're going to have to come in and take those repairs and hope that it's quick enough to be able to get back out on the circuit and try to make up whatever you can from attrition, which I have to say, despite losing a couple cars, Rosenbaum, Castile, and Singh are all out. It's not as bad as I would have feared, because this track can often, Joey, really eat cars up.
Let's check back in with 20 minutes to go here, Joe, because I feel like, we still got an hour and 15 minutes, and that's a lot.
Speaking of which,
right? Here we go.
Yeah, 2 cars off track. Boyd Payne, and that looks like Tom Hammond, I believe, that have gone off in the chicane. I'm going to take a wild stab and guess that that's involved with one another. They're off at the same place.
Yeah, especially down there into turns 10A, 10B. That's a big braking zone. I think, I'm sorry, I think I interrupted. I think Carter just got by Billy.
Yeah, he just got by him. And also, that whole incident that we saw through that chicane was right in front of our overall leader, Nathan. He got through there just barely. There was barely a hole that he was able to get through. But Carter did get around. Now he's going to try and gap himself, see how far he can get away, try and navigate traffic a little bit better.
Never seems to fail in Autobahn. Everything happens at once. What if we could pull up a couple replays of both that incident and then the pass and get a closer look at that? So that was a fair bit of work for Carter Kundinger, but in the end seems to be worth it and gets him the position. We're going to look at what happened with Rosenbaum first. And this was a long, long time ago. We didn't get a chance. There's the contact into the Ferrari. And yeah, the secondary hit as well into the corner. Looked like a spin after it for that BMW, unfortunately, after he made the little bit of a touch. Oh, and no, he hit the Porsche a second time. He's been a pinball.
That was Jimbo Pfeiffer getting into the back of Nicholas Davis after Nicholas Davis got into Rosenbaum, I believe. So just all 3 cars getting involved in the party.
And then this is Hammond down into the chicane. Yeah, just made too ambitious of a move. And someone else there, a third party, had to go off course to try and avoid both of them. I think he was able to return without incident from what had appeared there on the screen. You can see the battle for third, having to carefully tiptoe past them, as well as a view of it. Ooh, perfect timing therefore our overall leader.
Was very sketch, and I can tell you right there, when you see that sort of thing happen in front of you, you know just what that can do to the car. Even a slight hit will ruin the aero surface and make you slower. And I can tell you there are, I don't know, 13 other drivers who, when they hear you're going to be slower, are going to be all up on you when they come up to you.
Yeah, right now with 14 cars in that field, they are looking relatively spread out, but like you said, everybody's really hoping that you're the one that runs into trouble. Speaking of running into trouble, you can see just how tough it is, basically from turn 1 down to 5. He gets one car in through there, does Nathan Olson, but now he has to sit and wait patiently behind Trent Brown before he can overtake him out of turn 5, and they plunge towards 6 with Iverson just in front and staying out of the way. But it cost him a little bit of time. Paul Darling cuts it down to about 1 second, but he also now has to deal with these same cars. So there's that ebb and flow. Traffic giveth, traffic taketh.
And Joe, speaking of that traffic, they're coming up on the heart of the GT pack right now. They're going through kind of like the tail end of the mid pack. It's about to get really busy for these leaders here this next lap.
No doubt about that. The higher up you get in the field of the GT cars, the more harshly they're going to fight for every position and maybe not give you the space that you thought you could have. You have to try and stay on your toes. But so far, so good, at least for Nathan Olson. As we come back amongst our GT drivers heading up over the hill, practical train of vehicles heading down through the S's. This is all currently sitting behind Ryan Robertson in 7th position overall of the GTs, but 6th in the pros.
Yeah, and you see just how thick that GT field is as the leaders are starting to work their way through. And Joe, I think something that's cool about Autobahn here is the team presence. You know, there's always the team championship, but look at all of these black and green cars. Composite seems to really taken over Autobahn this year.
Yeah, I mentioned I had to specify there in the points the fact that it is the composite team. Double check on the name there. Which one was Composite Performance Iceman specifically is the one that is fighting for the championship and sitting in a relatively good position, but it's 8 points difference. If one of their drivers has a seriously bad race, that can affect them greatly, and you bet that Moradness is going to try and snatch that away at the last round.
Anything's possible, especially here at Road Atlanta, but I will say the more buddies you got to bring to the playground, the better you feel.
They got plenty out here. Eric Thomas up at the front of them. That's Luke Schmidt, who's racing for the AMs, Robert Cass for the pros, and then Franco Margarella back there. So that's actually the interesting thing about that is that's 2 of our GT AMs fighting for the championship within the same team. That might be sister teams, I think, as they might not be on the same composite team. I'll have to double check on that, but always, of course, makes it a little bit awkward as to who has loyalties where amongst them, or if any at all. And I'm sure they're going to be fighting tooth and nail until the very end so that one can claim the crown. But they get onto the backstretch, and it's a very good run for Cast on Schmidt, but he can't go by. And now they got another composite car. Carter Kundinger gets his way past them.
Yeah, he was jealous. You guys were talking about all of them, and he wanted to be a part of the picture too.
So now he is through there. I can tell you that it is Jake Hickson and Iverson that I'm seeing the GTMs for Composite Iceman. Maverick has Luke Schmidt, and then Goose has Margarella. So they are on different composite teams. There's so many composite drivers out there. You heard me just listing right there 3 separate teams within the major team that they have all competing.
Well, and of those teams, there's 3 cars apiece. So, yeah, there's a lot of cars that are black and green out there. And just to touch on this AM championship a little bit more, because, yeah, this is Luke Schmidt kind of that we're following here, one of these composite cars. He is second in AM in the race currently right now. And he leads the AM championship. I believe right now, as long as he stays second in AM, he will claim that points championship over Robert Rattray. But Robert Rattray doing what he needs to, leading the AM race currently.
Yeah, second or better for Luke will clinch the Enduro Cup. And that's the other thing here is we've got the Enduro Cup in the regular season. And for Schmidt, he could get both in one go. If he gets if he clinches with that sixth or better for the GTM overall championship, then indeed he will also clinch the GTM Enduro Cup.
Well, and you mentioned kind of the inter-team battle because Franco Margarella is right there. He's also involved in the points championship. So you're right. You know, how much does Franco push the issue knowing that Luke is in a good spot? And if you push that issue, you could potentially be taking away the championship from your teammate.
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, it gets more complicated than you typically would think here. So you definitely have to be careful about how you play all this. Riding on board with the 11 of Margarella, climbing up the hill at the tail of this train. There's another one of our composite prototypes. That time going by, that was Mo Islam, and thankfully doesn't interrupt them too much. Behind them, they've now got Dominic Dornenberg, and he is able to overtake someone in pit lane, but this is very early. That was Boyd Payne. No, Trent Brown. Sounds like he may have towed in. Ooh, problem at turn 5. That was a big hit now that I'm going back and catching up on that replay on my screen. That happens a lot here, Joey. And fortunately, he just missed the tire barriers. He basically just sent it straight into concrete.
We mentioned turn 5 pre-race, those exit curbs. I think they've bit a couple people, but this is the first real highlight that I've seen. Trent Brown, the only PG-13 racing entry, hard into the wall.
A really bit of a shame. We're going to take a look at it. Yeah, unfortunately, they did not extend the tires quite to where he needed it as they took too much exit curb. Couldn't see the hit there, but it was massive, and the engine expires immediately, so he's effectively done with this race.
It's the exit curbs. You get up here, you see it bounce it all around. It really unsettles the car, and oof. Thankfully, this is the virtual world.
Yeah, I got to see a car do just about that exact thing in the real world here this weekend. It's very, very scary to witness it in person there. Thankfully, everybody was okay from that hit in that race. But coming back down the backstretch once again, looks like the battle is now between what looks like, I think, is that Josh Wolf and Mo Islam. So this is for the 7th spot here. The P12 of Josh Wolf leading the pair of them coming up over the hill to complete lap 21.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rear end of Josh's car, and it doesn't look like it's entirely in its normal starting position. It looks like there's a little bit of rear end damage. I'm not sure if that's affecting his vehicle, how that's affecting overall performance, but it's quickly becoming a heated battle here as there's a lapped car right in front of them through the S's. Joshua's going to go to the outside, be able to make the pass, but Mo's going to be stuck behind this GT car. Is he going to be able to make up any time? No, it looks like that's just, oh man, ebbs and flows here. That battle just cooled down just as quickly as it was heating up, Joe.
Yeah, we've talked about how important that S's section is going to be throughout the race, and the drivers were definitely talked to a lot about that coming up to this, Josh, trying to make good decisions in that, because honestly, yes, it's the last race of the season. You may have a championship position that you're fighting for, a rivalry that you want to settle, but everybody wants to at least get to the end of the race.
I mean, getting to the end of the race is the most important thing, right? You got to get points on the board. If you want to get points, you first must get to that point. So it makes sense, just try and keep it clean. Don't make really silly decisions and try and, don't screw up any other races. You also got to consider what those other drivers that you're racing around are also racing for.
Well, and the conditions are going to continue to change as well, Josh. We have to remember, as you can see, the beautiful glow we've got of the sunset. It's currently just past 7 p.m. here in the virtual world, and we've got an hour left to go. So it's going to be getting pretty dark by the time they get to the end of this race.
Yeah, it's dark. It's going to be difficult. And, Joe, I was looking at that accident that happened off of turn 5 on the exit of the S's. And one thing that just came to my mind was, okay, that's a blind corner. What if that were to have happened in front of a really heated battle for the lead? Or, and they're coming over the corner, they want to go side by side, and the next thing you know, boom, there's a car in the middle of the track. That's going to be hard to see. Now, with the lights, it may be a little bit better and easier to see over a blind hill, but still, got to be careful.
Yeah, no, you make an excellent point. Ryan Robertson and Robert Rattray fighting for 6th position amongst the GTs, but 2 different class cars here. He's all over the back of Rattray, hoping to get by, maybe feeling like he's being held up because he wants to chase down Bradley Haley for that top 5 within the pro class. And he's also got Thomas, who is in that pro class as well, kind of hounding him from behind. So he's not really enjoying seeing Rattray's Porsche kind of plugging things up for him. Now they're going to have to deal with this prototype temporarily, and they're able to continue on as he slices right past. But yeah, I don't think, Josh, it's even a matter of if there's a battle. If you're one of those prototypes coming over that hill, you're going to have precious little time to react.
Yeah, instantaneous, momentaneous. I have been at this track before. I was with the team. We were doing a Petit Le Mans at this track in an LMP2. And I can tell you, over 10 hours, you've seen just about everything that can happen. And that happened multiple times. And as you're coming up to it, no time to react. You just got to hope you can save it, because you're probably going to end up in the grass somehow.
Eddie Layton was ambitious, taking it too wide into turn 3 there on screen, but thankfully no harm, no foul, and we almost saw a repeat once again with Robertson's Ferrari. He's now going to defend the inside from Eric Thomas down into turn 6. Thomas can't quite get the position, but great save from the 21.
You saw Ryan Robertson bouncing all over the curbs, and this is a battle for the lead right now up front. Shirazi taking away the GT overall lead, and now doesn't get the exit out of 10B side by side. That's Ross Booth on the outside right now.
Yeah, Booth had a stronger exit, but couldn't do anything with it. He almost turned Shirazi around, who had to gather it back up. Look at that, all the way back out to the outside. Aggressive moves here. We're only a third of the way into this thing. Looks like he's still got the defense on. And yeah, Booth is not going to be able to get this back. So Shirazi, now your new leader. And we've had another victim for turn 5. Josh Wolf winds up in the tires.
He just got loose, or his rear end was just not cooperating. Remember, he has that rear end damage on the vehicle. Has that affected his wing? You don't know, but he was able to just kind of get a lazy spin off, not really hit anything too bad, didn't lose too much time. He is mired back now to about the 10th position, so did lose 3 positions overall.
Oh, we're still going at it, but Shirazi rebuffs Ross Booth, who wants that lead back. We were talking about it earlier, Joey. Ross has already wrapped this up for Shirazi. So for Shirazi, this is all just about pride. And for Booth, this is about mental intimidation.
Well, and Ross is really riding a high this season. He's won a lot of races this year in that Porsche, so I'm sure he wants to add Road Atlanta to the list at the end of this season. And I'm wondering where all this speed came from Shirazi, because he was hanging out 1 to 2 seconds back for the most part the first half hour of this race. And I made a mention, it's now within 1 second, and then another lap later, he's already overtaken the lead. So definitely have to keep an eye on Shirazi. Maybe the sun coming down has woken up that car.
Yeah, it's already been 6 wins. So even if he doesn't win this race, Booth, yeah, things getting very close there and sending a car off into the grass. That was Boyd Payne just trying to stay out of the way of this fight. It continues on. Booth now back ahead of Shirazi. I was going to say, and Shirazi did not like that one. We can't repeat what he said over the radio, but he is heated up.
I don't blame him, Joe. That prototype really stuck it in there in turn 3. Not only did it affect him, but there was another GT car off. It's just that here in the iRacing world, we get those broadcast transmissions, and the real world is just yelled inside the car.
Exactly. So, yeah, just a bit of a scary moment for Shirazi. Wasn't mad. At first, I wasn't sure who exactly was mad at, but you're right. It was the prototype, and Booth taking advantage of that. So Ross Booth, his stats are going to be at minimum half the races this season, potentially more, as unfortunately composite, with more drivers, more opportunities for problems. Satterfield seems to be off of turn 7.
And Adam Satterfield was a newer addition, a late addition to the composite team, and has been pretty fast, but unfortunately a little spin out of turn 7 is going to set him back.
Yeah, so Satterfield, where did he wind up in that class? He's now in 12th, it looks like, but I think he's fourth. Yeah. So fell off the podium. Margarella runs away from that one. Oh, and our leader's in Our leader, Nathan Olson, has pitted, but he's the only one that I see in pit lane so far of the prototypes.
Robert Tinsley just came down pit road as well. So now 2 of our lead pack coming in to get their tires, and Nathan is getting tires right now. His car is lifted off the ground. We see Robert Tinsley right there. Oh, who is this off track? I'm trying to find out who that is.
It's a weird place.
I think that looks like Jimbo Pfeiffer
It
again.
is. Yeah, that's Pfeiffer. And he had a prototype with him, but they're on the, well, what's usually kind of the club circuit version of the track there. So I'm curious how they both wound up on that part of it. And Jimbo's also on the radio now, expressing his displeasure.
It was Peter Houston. He went and made a really bold move here into turn number 3. You'll see it here shortly. Just over that, gets them both locked up. And that's going to lose Peter plenty of time. Not what he wanted. You can see him flashing his light. It's very frustrated with him. And, I mean, I don't really blame him. That's really frustrating. That's a patience level maneuver that he just got real aggressive on.
You know, and I think some of this comes to, Josh, that a part of this style of racing is knowing your competitors well, knowing kind of the reputation of each other and knowing what to anticipate. So I guess maybe Jimbo's going to tuck that one away and say, well, I'm not going to try and cut down on Houston next time I see him in my mirrors.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you're going to want to put in your brain. And I can tell you that the best memories are those of racers, because they will never forget when you slide them the wrong way. And we got more takers on pit road. We got 4 LMPs on pit road right now. These are the Carter, Dominic Vance, and Joshua Wolf, all on pit road right now getting service to their vehicles.
Yeah, Bao is in. I'm not surprised that Wolf is pitting now because he may have had a little bit of damage from his contact with the wall, so he'll want that repaired. Looks like our former leader, where is he after that? Looks like 6th place. So Nathan Olson returns in relatively clear air, whatever you can consider clear air at a track this short, but not around any of his rivals in the same class. Darling also now pitting in.
It comes down pit road, gonna go ahead and try and also get 4 tires, full fuel. Billy Smith behind him also coming down pit road. It is a very busy season for all of the LMP cars coming down.
Peter Houston taking his stop. This must be about the end of the pit window. Yeah, because we're 5 minutes past the hour. That's going to be about as far as they can go. Mo Islam, woo! We might want a replay of Mo Islam's pit entry. He may even get a penalty for being too quick on to pit lane here. I'm double checking on my screen to see what his speed was as he crossed the cones. You're given a little bit of leeway. I think he's going to get away with it, but he was literally drifting that thing down to the cones.
I earned style points for that. No black flag though, no issue. 6, 7, all these cars coming down pit road. No issues. Paul Darling leaves pit road. He is, what about 7 seconds behind our leader, Nathan Olson.
This is Islam that we're watching. Now watch this one around that final little corner. Woo! Nice catch.
It's style points. Formula Drift. He's just practicing.
Exactly. Peterson, Canchin, Layton, all pitting in. Still waiting. No, actually, Robert Tinsley has pitted. That is it. That is everybody in the prototypes having taken their stop. Does look like a few more of the GT cars are pitting. Shirazi goes in. Booth stays out. Park also visiting his crew.
I think this has triggered the GT stops. You see Ross Booth stay out on the racetrack. He was in the battle with Shirazi and gets pushed out a little wide there. But Ross Booth knows this Porsche very well. He's going to stretch it as far as he can. And knowing him, he was probably fuel saving that whole time.
Ross Booth with multiple championships here in the GT Pros. So he knows what he's doing out there. Has definitely earned, speaking of reputation, a reputation of being a dominant driver, frankly, in these cars. And he is trying to uphold that one as we continue to watch the battle here amongst the prototypes, now coming down into turn 1 with Carter Kundinger currently holding the trump card of track position over Billy Smith, but not by a whole lot. It's half a second between them.
Yeah, it's going to be a really epic battle. They were really close last time they came through this section of the track. There was a GT car in front of them that made it very difficult for them to have any speed through the S's. That allowed Smith to close up real quick onto the back of Kundinger, but no factor for him.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this includes his 6 wins from this season, but I can tell you that from my stats, it looks like Booth has at least 17 in his 11th on the all-time winners list here in the Autobahn series, and they've been at it for more than 10 seasons, so many of those have racked up. But we continue to follow this battle to try and decide the last step of the podium here in the prototypes, which has become a significant battle in terms of the championship for P2 in the points. But as it sits right now, I believe that Carter Kundinger is still not able to overtake Smith. He still needs to be much farther ahead, multiple positions away from that 901.
Well, it's a 20 car off track or the 37? 37's off track right now.
Looks like another issue in turn 3. Such a tricky and difficult corner. He'll trundle his way back onto the circuit a little bit down on speed, but thankfully he finds a nice opening where he's not going to interrupt anybody here. And this will send him down to 19th out of all the GTs, but it appears that he is somewhere around 7th or 8th there amongst the AM category.
And Joe, I want to pitch in turn 3. It is incredibly tricky here in the simulator. Let me tell you, in real life, it's much, much easier to pick out the references that you need to up there. However, turn 3 in iRacing, it is a cruel, cruel mistress up there. No matter what you do, you can never get it right, it seems.
Yeah, I got to think that having some sort of stereoscopic view probably helps a lot out there. Well, I guess you could do that with VR here as well. But look at this. We got another potential pass coming down into the first turn. Big look from Billy Smith. Oh, they got a car off. That is going to be Sean Reese, who was hoping to maybe do something in this championship, but he just smacks the wall in his Lamborghini, and that might have put the seal on his lack of a championship in the AMs.
Trying to be real nice, I think, letting this battle go through, and just accidentally was too nice, gave way too much room, went off track, and then ended up not being a factor whatsoever. We see another GT car here that's going to, oh man, this is going to really stack them up. Going to get them real close together to off this straightaway here. Oh, Smith's there. He's got all that draft in the world. Plenty of time to use it and close that gap a little bit more.
He's right behind him. He's in the tire tracks, going to see if he can try and get enough speed to try and shoot past into the braking zone. But a big defense from Carter Kundinger as they approach that left-hander. And as you'd expect, Smith decides it's not worth it. He does not have the high ground. He'll go back to 4th. And did Shirazi just overtake Booth for the lead?
Yeah, Ross almost wrecked it in turn 5 that lap. We've seen the exit curbs in turn 5 catch a few competitors. Well, let me tell you, Ross was as far out as possible, and here he is already trying to make a run on Shirazi. He wants the lead back side by side through 12. It's pretty narrow. Ross has the advantage of track position going down into turn 1. This should be a pass.
It's got the inside. It's a quick right-hander that grips on the exit, and indeed, he gets it done. So he temporarily loses it, and we've seen this a couple times, Joey. Seems like there'll be a mistake, there'll be an opportunity for Shirazi, something that puts Booth on the back foot, and he's behind him, and he doesn't let it last long. He reasserts his dominance right away.
He really has a lot of speed in that car. The only thing is, Shirazi seemed to really turn it up late in the stint, so I'm wondering if his game is maybe breaking the tires earlier, save them for the end when he needs them.
Yeah, everybody in the GTs have now taken their pit stops. Let's take a look at what switched them around briefly. And once again, turn 5. He's very lucky to get away with this, and especially in a Porsche with all the rear on that, the weight on the rear end. And thankfully, it did not swing around. Granted, his rival also racing a Porsche, so evenly matched in that sense between this pair.
And it didn't look very exciting, but that's because Ross was under control pretty much the whole time once he saw that thing flying off the track.
A couple of the prototypes now going past them, with Mo Islam and Dominic Dornenberg fighting for what's 7th there in the prototype category. Getting close to the halfway mark of this race pretty soon. And remember, they will have another pit stop here this evening, and that will allow the GT cars, if anything, to go much, much longer. Now, they won't be able to one-stop it. They did not make it to this halfway point here. but it can come down to just a few minutes left before some of the more ambitious GT cars maybe try to run it dry.
I've seen pit strategies vary by as much as 3 or 4 laps here for the GT field. So you're right. I think we're going to see some more varying strategies as we get down towards that checkered flag.
Meanwhile, here is Olsen continuing to put another lap on Boyd Payne, who's been having a bit of an unfortunate race so far. Here to wrap things up. It's about 6 seconds from Olsen to Darling now, so the pit stops definitely did split them pretty far apart. And who have we got here? Is that the 135? Yeah, that's Chris Sherburne.
He's currently up on the rear end of the pack for those LMP2s, but I want to call out that lead that you just mentioned about Olsen. It may seem like it's long, but it's actually shrinking. I've been watching it slowly going down. It was up at a higher point when those pit stops occurred, got it down to 7. Now it's down to 6 seconds. So Paul is slowly chipping away at that lead. It's like every other lap. It kind of grows a half second, goes down by a 3/4 of a second, grows. It's all with that traffic, but it's slowly getting smaller.
I got to imagine that's got to be one of the toughest things, Josh, is just when you're in that prototype, you know that you've got to keep the car safe and whole. But you also know that you can't rest on your laurels through here with this traffic. You can see the slicing and dicing as we hop on board with Olsen, the decisions that he has to make constantly.
You got to make those decisions constantly, and you just got to, I mean, there are moves that you are going to make, and you're just going to hope that that other driver just expects you to make it. If they do that and they just stay where they're going to be, everything's going to be okay. It's when things start to get a little bit unexpected is when those big accidents occur. But yeah, no, got to manage that gap. You're going to be looking at that, keeping a focus on that, seeing how many cars that you have between them and yourself, and just trying to keep those as much as possible.
Now, it sounds like we got a replay for Sherburne. This is a bit of an unusual incident. We only saw the tail end of it. Watch this down through the S's. Wonder if the car just got light on the curbs here, because I went and checked it myself. And it's not often that you see a solo incident happen like that and then get away with it on top of things.
Let me jump in here. I think the only thing is coming down the S's, Joe, the car is really loaded up on the left side here. So if he's offline, I think he just bounces over the curb, combine that with a loose condition.
Yeah, it does look like it. It got loose almost as soon as he climbed on top of that yellow and blue curb on the right-hand side. But very lucky that some of the parts of these prototypes are so hardy, because he just tapped that wall and he carries on now, even though he is in last place. Sounds like you also got a bit of an update, Joey, on the championship down in the AMs.
Yeah, I've just been watching everything develop, and Luke Schmidt, who is your points leader in that GT AM category, he's fallen down to 3rd place right now in the AM race. He does have a few more spots to fall. He needs to be able to finish 6th or better to clinch that AM championship. However, lined up behind him is all GT AM cars. No more mistakes. He's got to keep it focused forward for 44 more minutes.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, I do believe that we are going to be heading off to a short little break here. We'll be back in just a moment for the finale, so stick around. So, oof, man, still close moments there coming down the hill and through the S's for a few of our competitors. That was Robert Rattray, who is leading the AM category right now and 6th overall. He's had multiple wins. It took us a long time before we got drivers with multiple wins in that AM class. And Rattray has certainly done a good job in this race itself. I think might be able to make himself the first one potentially to get 3 wins for the AMs this season. We got one of our prototypes off, trying to make out who that is. Is that the 90? Yeah, that's Vance Bow, who takes a tow. So must have had some serious damage from whatever happened, as he could not drive it back into pit lane. And I'm going to look. Oh, poor Sean Reese. What a miserable day it's been for him. And Joey, this is a huge, huge hit. What we're going to see here, just right at the wrong place.
Yeah, and even in that safety cutout you see there, the impact angle was terrible for Vance Bow. And let me tell you, the front right is pretty much hanging off of that prototype right now. I don't think Vance is going to be able to get back out there.
No, he hit it just full tilt straight on into that thing. So, well, there you go for Chris Sherburne. His survival has meant that he's now promoted up to 13th by default because of Vance Bow's incident. So he will try to carry on as best he can, and he's 17 seconds behind the next car, so he's got a ways to make up and try to get into there. We'll take a brief pause here while we come back from break over on Twitch. Welcome back to those watching on Twitch. Had a little bit of an incident there for Vance Bow that took him out of the race, unfortunately, that you missed. Went headlong into the barrier after trying to pass one of our GT cars, Sean Reese. And unfortunately, that has put Vance out of the race. So that promotes Chris Sherburne up into 13th. Ryan Robertson in the Ferrari has come through the chicane and is very vocal about his displeasure of what just happened, which I'm not even quite sure.
Well, I tell you what, it's everybody's favorite friend out there on the racetrack. Peter Houston was sending it up the inside of turn 10A on Ryan Robertson. We're going to catch this replay, and I think this one was a little bit aggressive here. So you see just into the the left rear of the Ferrari.
I don't like to talk gossip too much, but yeah, I've seen some of the drivers express some, let's say, displeasure with Houston in the past and the way he races. So this is doing it no favors as we look at the battle for the lead in GT Pro. Booth ahead of Shirazi. Booth going to defend down to the inside. And as they come to the braking, he'll come back to the racing line. Look like early lift or braking for Johan Shirazi, as I guess he didn't want to try and challenge it that time. Maybe he's just kind of waiting patiently. You know, we haven't talked about it, Joey. Is it possible to try and maybe save enough fuel that he could leapfrog him in this last pit stop?
I think if you're going to put a strategy out there, that's the one to execute, especially when you're following somebody like Ross, who you know stretches it. He stretched it further than Johan Shirazi the last stint, so might as well help him, or not help him, but have you tuck up into the draft, save some fuel, make your pit stop shorter than his.
Indeed. And another good run here coming up over the crest. This will be enlightening here. If he stays this close and still elects not to try and attack on the leader in class, very close to him coming up through 6. What about 7? Will we get a good exit out of the number 66? And will he try and attempt to move? He's got a lot of slipstream as they fly down the back straight. Let's see whether or not he tries to poke his nose or if we get another early lift out of that number 66 machine. He's closing in. He takes a look. He's going to try it. So no, there is no fuel saving here. He's going to try and make the pass down into the corner, but he can't quite finish it off. Cuts back underneath, but he was way into the marbles, and that cost him some grip.
Yeah, you called it, way into the marbles, but I will say that both competitors left plenty of room. Ross left the door open. He saw Shirazi down the inside. He didn't try to shut it. Also, Shirazi didn't drift up the racetrack. It actually cost him a little bit, like you said, driving out into the marbles.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I do love is that Johan and Ross have raced against each other tons over the years. So they are familiar with each other's styles, and they have a lot of respect for each other. And was that contact between Houston and Booth there for a moment? It got mighty close down through the S's.
Yeah, it really did, but I think Houston thought better of it. Aggressive move to get back into line there, but thankfully this GT battle still goes on. Coming out of turn 7, we saw Shirazi use the slipstream last time, and looks like he's tucked up into another good position.
We might want an onboard replay from Houston's perspective on that one. It was so close on him potentially getting into the back and taking out our leader in the pros here, the GT pros. That would have been a disappointing end to that battle if that's the way it wound up. That said, in about 3 minutes, our prototype should have an open window if they want to try and undercut somebody and pit early. So we'll see if anybody tries that strategy. Not usually a popular one here in iRacing, but sometimes you can see it happen. The two leaders in GT Pros still stuck nose to tail up the hill towards 2.
Up over the crest here into turn 3. Both of them doing a really good job hitting their marks over that apex curb and down through the S's, but really impressed with Shirazi. I mentioned that maybe he was a little slow to get going off of his initial stint. Maybe just takes the tires a little bit longer to come up into temperature for his setup, but tell you what, pretty much past halfway on this fuel run, he is on fire out there.
Is he ever? It's looking fantastic. Checking to see, I'm looking at my stat sheets. I always love to see kind of the behind the scenes on these drivers. And it looks like 3 wins in the career of Shirazi and 8 podiums. Still a long ways back compared to Ross Booth. Not a long ways back on track, though. This is another big run. He had this exact same move last time. Did he learn from it? He is going to be able to blast past. Booth doesn't look like he tried to defend it that hard, though.
No, I think that Ross kind of let him have that one, and you see just tucks right back in. I bet you Ross is going to go into fuel save mode, and if he feels like he's just faster, or if Shirazi's maybe holding him up visually, he'll just try to leapfrog right back around him.
Yeah, I kind of suspect Ross is a pretty smart cookie here, so he kind of knows he doesn't need to fight this the hard way, although he could. Depends on what kind of mood he's in, because he really has nothing to lose in this situation as they bound over the curbs down through the S's and back up towards turn 5. What's interesting to note is they've actually not really run away from Young Park. We haven't talked about that 77 a whole lot, and you can kind of see them there in the background trying to hold on to it. Meanwhile, we come back to the battle between Robert Tinsley and Dominic Dornenberg, and I'd say throw Mo Islam into that.
I've been watching this battle nonstop for the last couple of laps. You guys have had that awesome battle over there, and I've been completely enthralled with this battle. These guys are everywhere on track. They were coming down the front stretch, and they almost went 3 wide to try and race for this P6 position as they get past that battle for the lead.
Yeah, great stuff between the trio of them. Unfortunately, when you get a battle for the lead, you can't really jump away to battle for P6 too much, but definitely worth trying to get a brief look at this competition here for 6th position. Dornenberg in that 913 up at the front. That's Tinsley in the middle, and Mo Islam on the tail of the train. They have dropped off of Peter Houston by a wide margin, 16 seconds. The next car up, are we going at it again? A little bit wide there, I think, for Shirazi. Booth capitalizes. He's on the inside, down into the S's, and now he's through.
It was just another great piece of racing. Ross stuck his nose out there. Shirazi left the door open. They left enough room, but look at this. You mentioned it, Joe. There's a second black and green Porsche now joining the picture.
Indeed. We talked about Young Park kind of being a bit of a dark horse here. Maybe he could try and sneak a win away from both of them, especially if they get distracted amongst each other. Or if you're Young Park, to use that same strategy that we've hinted at, that he could potentially save fuel and try to jump them once they get to their pit stops. They've dropped the 4th place driver, Chris Pies, by a pretty big margin at this stage. He's not really in this fight unless something happens amongst these 3. But you never know. Still 33 minutes left on the clock, and something dramatic could indeed happen as they now cross the line once again, starting lap 43, and the sun continues to get lower.
That means visual cues are going to change, and in the virtual world, Joe, I know that when I run virtual reality, this is the time that is my nightmare. The frames start to drop on my computer. And let me tell you, FPS loss around Road Atlanta, never fun.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I don't think we often talk about things that correlate between real-world driving and virtual driving and how they have their sort of counterpart that mimics it. I don't think there's anything in real-world driving, unless you have an idea here, Joey, that can really compare to losing frame rate in the virtual world.
No, maybe a fuel pressure loss and the engine doesn't go as much, but that's about it.
I was going to say a dirty windshield at most, because it just affects your perception. It doesn't affect the performance of the car at all. It's just you as a driver, you're getting limited input on what's going on. Maybe you've lost the power steering. Maybe that's it.
Oh, yes, I have had that happen plenty of times out there. But yeah, this is that time the visual references start to change, but also the air temp starts to come down, which means the track, it starts to speed up. The lap times will come down and fall.
Absolutely. Looks like Paul Darling, unfortunately, well, it's not been a race to write home about. He's 15 seconds behind Olsen. It looked like at the beginning he was kind of keeping Olsen honest. It just dissipated, and we haven't really been paying attention to him. So I don't know if it's traffic, I don't know if it's lack of pace, or if he's had offs, but whatever the case, the 55 has been a complete non-issue for the 32.
He was keeping him honest at the beginning, but just nothing there. And that interval just keeps dropping further and further back. You see it's now almost 14 seconds at the moment. And he's actually in danger right now of losing even more positions. You'll see those LMPs kind of come over the hill behind him, try and start to show their headlights in your mirror. And I can tell you that's it'll get through your head, especially when you were up there almost battling for the first overall position.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's not the way he really wanted to wind this one out. Carter Kundinger, now that he's gotten past Billy Smith, is doing what he needs to do at this point. He's trying to chase down Darling, trying to see if he can take that lead away. And for some reason, Dornenberg is in pit lane. Did he just take a tow, or did he drive himself in there? He drove himself in there. Okay, so this is a scheduled stop now for the 913.
It looks like he's going to get maybe 4 tires of fuel here. We'll see if this is a jack drop or just fuel. I'd imagine 4 tires here.
Yep, he's off and going. And will he be in clear air? That's the big thing. If you can time it right, you can try to get as many hot laps in as you can. And Eddie Layton is not close to him. So, yeah, he's not going to be fighting anybody from behind. Peterson's well far ahead. So I think Dornenberg did make a good call, at least for now. 2 tenths between Shirazi and Booth. Back up to 9 tenths down to Park, who can't seem to hang quite as much. They are approaching a lapped Ferrari. That is going to be Ed Eisenring, who is still carrying on despite having a bit of dramas here today in that 929.
And I think this is actually helping out Ross right now, getting a little bit of that slipstream, keeping Shirazi at an arm's length distance down the back straightaway. And it's just kind of one of the benefits, but he's got to get by Ed at a right time and see if Ed pulls off into pit lane. No, he doesn't. He's going to stay out. The GT window should be open here pretty soon. It's just a little bit past those prototypes, but if they're starting to come in and 30 minutes remaining, that window is officially open for the GTs.
Meanwhile, it sounds like you had a chance to take a look at that pit stop for Dornenberg. Interesting call we're hearing here, Josh.
No tires. Yeah, you're hearing that right. No tires for him. That's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out here, what his lap times look like overall. The lap times aren't too off of what people's bests are, but it's certainly an interesting call to see if he can double stint those tires. It's definitely possible. It's going to get colder here. Track's going to get a little bit cooler, so you're not going to be burning them off as much. Also going to call out that Robert Tinsley and Mo Islam having a super heated battle right now. They almost contacted each other, I think, off of turn number 7. Tinsley lost it off of corner exit, almost ran into the back of him was Islam, and they are still going after it through turns 3 and 4 down through the S's. No room between them and plenty of time to make this pass happen.
We saw Peter Houston briefly, and he was going slow out of the chicane. That's because apparently he was involved in an accident with a GT car once again. Looks like we got a replay on it. It was a bit of a mess on the way down there, and as he tried to find an opening, it shut the door, and the Audi just absolutely plowed into him. I think that may have been Bradley Haley that had a big hit with him. Oh, and we just had a change for the lead again. Shirazi back ahead of Booth.
It is just a seesaw battle between these two Porsches, and with 28 minutes remaining, I expect it to go on. I think The only way that this is going to get stretched out is if the pit stop strategies are greatly different, and that's how it really stretches out.
Did I just hear right that Robert Rattray got hit by Houston as well?
That incident, that was Peter Houston going up and hitting the back of Robert Rattray. That was that white and red Porsche or GT-AM leader there.
Okay, so yeah, that's what we were looking at. I didn't realize that was Robert. He gets away with it. He's still the leader. Wow, that is a heart in your throat moment if you're Robert, knowing that that could have been his race thrown away. And he is fighting Schmidt for the championship, but Schmidt currently still third. Yeah, he's in position to take that GT-AM overall championship. I have to check. I'm not sure. So he needs to be ahead of Corey Insing.
He needs to have 6th place or better. And honestly,
I'm talking about the Enduro now is what I'm trying to figure out here. Yeah. It's Insing, Shane Hunter, Nick Davis, and Robert Rattray that are trying to chase him on that. That one's a little more complicated because it's actually quite close.
Yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted you there. I thought I was on the same brain wavelength as you, but no, with 2 separate things. And yeah, Luke Schmidt still looks good for the current championship. He's got to fall to 6th, but lots of track position between him and the next AM cars.
Sounds like a lot of the prototypes don't feel a need to get tires. I wonder if it's because the sun's going down here, Josh, that it's not eating them up all that much because the track's going to continue to drop.
Yeah, I mean, the speed, those lap times aren't really off of their best lap times. I don't really see a need. I mean, let's just take a look at Nathan Olson. His last time around was 1/10 slower than his best overall lap time. I think these tires are great. I think they're fine. There's no reason to get new tires. Just go in, grab some fuel. Don't want to waste time.
Yeah, and it could just be that they only need to splash and dash. Billy Smith is the latest to find pit lane. So he'll give up the 4th position, and we'll see where he emerges. Behind him, one of our GT cars, Patrick McDaniel, in the pits. Not sure if that's scheduled or if he had an issue, but he's getting some service now in that number 95, waiting for Olson to take his 2nd and final stop of the season.
Joe, I'm looking right now in the pits right now. Billy Smith comes down pit road. Tires. He is getting tires. So this is going to be really interesting to see how that affects the overall pit position, where he's going to come out and how fast he is going to be to the other cars around him.
So let's see. Peter Houston was a 26-second stop. Yeah, Smith, it doesn't add anything to the stop, it looks like. It's still 26 seconds for Billy Smith compared to those that decided not to take tires. Well, Mo Islam was short. Now, this is curious. Mo Islam's is significantly shorter, but he's the only one with his 2nd pit stop to have done so.
Oh, hard wreck for the 12. Joshua Wolf off. Oh, goodness gracious. Broken right front tire. He's going to tow back. And that's Joshua's Wolf race probably over.
And who is that off with him, though? Trying to make out who that is in the Porsche. Looks like Nick Olas. I think he's far down the field. Yeah, he's in 19th. He's in the AM category. So that's just a bad day going worse for him. Still, nobody wishes that on any of the other cars. Let's take a look. Oh, 3 wide into turn 2. Usually a bad idea. Very similar to Vance Bow's incident.
That's tough, Joe, because I think he's expecting to clear the GT car, but the GT car is not lifting. He's in the battle, and over comes the prototype on him. Just a ride along for this GT car.
Yeah, it was a big hit for both of them. And I'll be kind of surprised if they're able to keep going from here, because that probably really, if it did not wreck the suspension, had to have destroyed something in the engine for both of those cars just from the G-forces. So I expect to see them in pit lane soon enough. Meanwhile, speaking of in pit lane, we've got Carter Kundinger in there.
O2 is going to bring it down pit road here. It's going to be a questionable decision of whether or not he wants to do tires or fuel only. He's going to bring it in here. He's been battling pretty hard right now with the 55 machine. Tires. Cars in the air, going to put tires on this machine. He feels that it's necessary for him to get to the end to have a set of new, fresh tires on this vehicle.
A real split strategy for the field today, so that's curious. Interesting stuff. Like you said, I want to see if it has any noticeable effect on everybody else. But right now, watching the P1 and P2 fight and the GT Pros who've dropped Young Park like a bad habit, unfortunately. 1.7 seconds now down to that number 77 machine. And for Shirazi, he holds the upper hand briefly. It has been absolutely back and forth just all day long. And who is going to be ahead when we get to that checkered flag? Because that is the most important thing.
Well, and got a prototype off here in turn 7 right by our GT leaders. You see the Porsches go right there. There's Young Park. This is Robert Kansen having problems, 11th in prototype.
He'll get back on there, Josh, and keep going. But also, it looks like Mo Islam is into the pits.
This is interesting. He's coming down the pits again, I think.
Remember, he had a 17-second stop before. Everybody else was doing 26 seconds. I'm willing to bet he accidentally short-fueled that thing.
It's definitely a possibility here. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
8 seconds. Yep.
Oh, man, that's unfortunate. How much time do you lose on pit road here? It's got to be way too much to even want to even consider ever doing a short pit like that in the future.
Well, Zach Ginn, unfortunately, going to have to crawl back onto the track in that 34. And it'll send him down into 15th. I think, no, that's not being overtaken. That's actually being lapped by Booth and Shirazi. Thankfully, does not interrupt them.
And I think Shane Hunter got into the back of Zach Ginn out there in turn 1. Ended up turning him around. And you see Zach just off the pace right now, trying to stay out of the way. I think he's got some damage on the BMW.
Yeah, as he comes out onto the back stretch. Looks like it's just not been going his way at the end. We often talk about sometimes the curb strikes can do that, although they have made these GT3s pretty strong in one of the latest iRacing builds, Joey. Could you maybe hit something a little hard to do that? Or I guess there could be the more obvious, maybe you got hit by somebody we didn't see.
I think with the damage model, it really depends on where you get hit. If you get hit anywhere in like the corners, you're probably looking for a bad day. But if you do something head on like square, we've definitely seen the prototypes just bounce right off from it.
Well, back up towards turn 3 with less of their concern from behind, and now with just each other. Shirazi and Booth carry the fight on. In fact, I don't think they've been much farther apart than 2 seconds away from each other pretty much the entire race this time. Meanwhile, down into pit lane, that's Eric Thomas in the 18, who's looking to take his final stop. He's just behind Zach Ginn, who is going to be able to get back out on track and rolling. We've already seen him have some issues. And I do see Leif Peterson looking for his pit stall. So lots of them now executing their final stop. Less than 20 minutes left.
We saw Nathan and Paul come down pit road. Both of them got tires, and that gap is now almost 20 seconds between the overall leader and second place.
Back into the chicane once again. And the other thing that I wonder too, we've seen some real headaches with some of the prototype traffic, Joey. I'm hoping it doesn't decide this battle, because I worry that in these last 20 minutes that it might become a big factor if they just find someone that comes upon them when they're fighting hard and it's down to the last lap or two.
I think that's part of endurance racing. You never want to see it happen, but I mean, just go back, rewind a few weeks ago to the Sebring 12-hour of IMSA in real world, and there was plenty of incidents that happened, especially even in the last 20 minutes of the race. But talking about this GT Pro battle, Joe, knowing Ross, there's like Kevin Harvick is known as the closer, right? Ross Booth is back there. I'm counting on him to stretch it 1 to 2 laps further than Shirazi, overcut our leader, and come out on top.
So you're saying he's going to close the booth on him?
Ah, good one. There it is. Yes.
we'll have to make that part of the repertoire for Ross Booth as he continues to build his legend here in the series. But Carter Kundinger is off, and Billy Smith is by. Remember, Kundinger really needs to finish ahead of him, and he's going to pit this time. He's already had his second stop. Has this been too many incidents? Let me see if he's got a black flag. No, he doesn't have a black flag. He must have had some sort of damage. He shouldn't have a reason to pit.
This is very weird. The incident that happened, he went straight off. It's like he didn't have steering. His brakes might have failed. I'm not exactly sure what happened here, but it just
that's got to be hardware, software. Something went wrong there. Usually, you don't see cars do that.
That's very unfortunate. Now I don't think steering wheel or anything like that got decalibrated, because if that was the case, you would have seen him go in one direction or the other, and typically
he's out.
Wow.
He's retired. Something serious has gone wrong, and Carter Kundinger has relinquished second place to Billy Smith. He will be your second place in the Prototype Championship because of this incident. Hopefully we'll get to ask Carter or get some information as to what happened. And we're really sad that that's the way it ended up. But for Billy Smith, he's got to be ecstatic now that he can cruise to a happy celebratory podium.
That is an incredible turn of events. Now, you never know what's happening on the other side of that monitor, so I hope everything's okay with Carter, and just hoping that he is okay, and it was just a small technical issue that resulted in just an unfortunate turnout. But send our best wishes to him and hope everything is okay over there. As we see, he is going to get that second place in the championship pretty much secured and locked up. No issues from here on out.
Still trying to make sure that he plays nice with the traffic. Nathan Olson has gapped it up to 18, almost 19 seconds. I'm seeing a few of the GT cars pitting in. Robert Rattray and Bradley Haley, two of our front runners in overall GT, but also Rattray, our leader in the GT AM. Robertson's going to carry on. Young Park just finished his stop. Chris Pies also carries on. So mixed call here, but we are seeing a few of them figure this is far enough, and they're going to take their fuel and get back out there.
And so here it is. Shirazi came in earlier. Ross, this is his second lap over Shirazi right now. We'll see if he stretches it to +3. I think it's only going to be +2 right now, and we're going to see the 0-3 come in, take his pit stop, and come out in front of Shirazi. And hey, just to give you a Carter update, just got a message. His VR died, so he's back out there on a single screen right now loading up.
Wow. Sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. So for Carter, I have to give him credit though, Joey. That is a true racer. He's effectively lost it here. It's highly unlikely, because even if Smith has a problem, they're going to be two of the last cars, and he can't get enough points to overhaul him. But he's going to finish the race, and to me, that is such a great bit of sportsmanship from him to say, you know what, even if it's over for me, I'm going to finish this thing.
Agreed, and props to Carter, because I know that he's involved in a lot of different sim racing, but this is really kind of his child out here, Autobahn. He's really the admin. He's the one who takes control, does all the scheduling, makes sure everybody in line. So yeah, no, props to Carter for really handling this whole series out here.
Absolutely. And it is thankless work running a series. There's a reason I don't run series, frankly. You are not usually a popular person. But coming up towards our prototypes here, we got, is this another battle for position amongst some of our composite cars? Nope, this is just Carter, actually, that we're seeing on screen. Sorry, I thought he was chasing down the car of Dominic Dornenberg, who's promoted to 5th because of that. Peter Houston promoted to 4th. You know, for all the guff that we give that 14 car, he's running 4th place. He's got a very fast car out there. It's just he's been in the wars, shall we say.
Yeah, and makes a wise decision right there. You see, trying to get back around Ryan Robertson, I believe. And you're right, sitting in 4th place, a little bit far behind Billy Smith, but you never know what can happen. 13 minutes left. We just saw Carter retire, so keep on in it, Peter.
So Shirazi's coming around after Ross Booth has just pitted. Where are they going to be in relation to one another? Past the cones. Booth is on the throttle. Shirazi's coming around, but he's not going to be ahead of him. It looks like Booth has him covered.
And crucially has a prototype between him and his closest GT competitor. I'm checking the timing and scoring screen. 1.0 seconds. So trust me, it's not over. Shirazi's going to be on him.
We still need a stop from Chris Pies, Robert Cast. They're now leading this race, but they need a second stop before we get to the checkers. And heard some talking from Nick Olas there. Just trying to see if he was involved in anything. It might have just been a little bit of chatter here late at the race. Yeah, they're just having a little bit of banter, I believe. He's sitting down in 20th, 31st overall. By the way, Joey, you were talking not too long ago about attrition. We're down to what looks like, I think, 22 cars left on track, I think. Or no, excuse me, 34 rather.
34 total, 22 GT, and what looks to be 11 prototypes. And honestly, to reference that conversation, I'm surprised it's not higher. We do have a handful of retirements, but no big ones so far.
Yeah, it definitely has been higher numbers in the past that we've seen have not made it to the finish, especially in a race of this length. That's a very good testament to this series. They pride themselves on, despite it being a bit chaotic, it's organized chaos out here, and they consider themselves very clean racers. It is so difficult to race multi-class, and it's even more difficult with this many drivers out on a lot of these tracks, but they have so much experiences. Oh, now did Darling have something happen? Running in second place for much of this race, he's lost P2, and this was out of turn 7. This was a simple mistake. Nobody around him. He slid the car off the course. Billy Smith is going to inherit that spot.
It was just a simple mistake. Just overdrived it a little bit too much, loses it off into that turn over there, and just can barely get it off track. It's so easy to make a mistake like that, and so hard to get it off that grass, and that just hands it over to Billy Smith.
Very un-Paul Darling-like, if I'm honest. Usually a very solid driver, and again, nobody around him, and it didn't look like he touched the grass on the way in. It just, for some reason, came around, Josh.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and check to see if he ever actually got tires on that last stop, and I'm curious to see if he did or didn't, how that would affect. Actually, I do remember he got tires, so these are fresh tires, not old tires.
Maybe could have downshifted a little bit early or something. Just a strange incident to have that was sadly costly for him, because he could have pretty much cruised home to that second place ahead of Billy Smith. But now Billy is the one that is up in P2 and is 26 seconds behind Nathan Olson. We've seen these kind of races from Nathan this season. He has basically trounced the field a few times by just running away with things. And this looks to be one of those cases, ending it on a high as he puts another lap on the car of Bradley Haley and now on Robert Cast. Haley, not really, I think, getting the finish of the season he wanted either. The 428 sits in 7th, 6th within his class, but we've seen him vie for wins in seasons and races past, but certainly not going to be the case here today.
Yeah, we see. Oh,
Go
ahead.
Josh.
Sorry.
No,
I was just gonna say that it is 9 minutes left in the race, Joey. Feel nervous always talking about that. You know, you mention, a dominant race, and then something happens. 5 minutes left in the race, he gets sent off. We saw that wreck happen in front of him, and we see a battle here right now.
Well, I know you're kind of the new guy here with Autobahn races. Me and Joey have seen plenty, and be ready for chaos here at the end, because they also have a reputation of everything exploding come the last few laps. So, no, you're not wrong. It could absolutely change around, because we've seen drivers who have had the race basically locked up and suddenly, unfortunately, wrecked out with just minutes to spare. Meanwhile, we've got one of our Lambos here on screen coming up the hill. That's going to be Rattray, chased by Cast. Cast in the Lambo. That's Rattray in the Porsche just in front of him in the 33. 5th in all of the GT cars and still leading that AM category.
And actually, Bradley Haley right behind Robert Cast, who we're riding on board with, has a really good run in that Audi. But shout out to Robert Cast, probably our biggest mover inside the GTs and in the top 10, up 6 positions from where he started. And you see the Audi right now, Bradley Haley, actually one of our unfortunately biggest losers, down 4 positions. We highlighted him going off early, turn 12, and just hasn't been able to pick it back up.
Also, we were talking a bit about Shane Hunter as well, and him being in some of those fights for both the championship in AM and the Enduro championship in AM. He's actually climbed up to 6th place of the AMs, but that's not going to be enough to do anything for him. Still 14 positions gained for the 927. So, wow, big credit to him for the performance that he had. It was just too little too late. Whoa! Somebody around on the front stretch in their composite BMW. And speaking of the AMs, that is Adam Satterfield, comes to a halt. He takes a tow. Will move Shane Hunter now up to P5 because of that, actually.
And I'm just checking to see what happened here. Oh, no, looks like a prototype involved in this one as well. Looks like maybe Leif Peterson coming too wide. And, you know, that's just a racing deal. I think the prototype is sticking it around the outside, and the BMW just wasn't aware that he was already there.
Yeah, those GT cars have to track out so much more and try to make that outside move on a fast corner. Sometimes it can go horribly awry. For Peterson, it worked out, but I don't think he made too great of friends with Adam in that situation. Peterson currently running 8th in that prototype class right now. There you see him on screen down in through the chicane. It is getting pretty dim, but not as dark as I thought it would be. They do have lights around here, some temporary lights that get set up when iRacing goes into the dark at Road Atlanta. So a few corners get something of illumination, but not a whole lot of it. So we come back down the hill into the chicane, back to the battle between Booth and Shirazi. This has basically been a thread of a story that has weaved its way through the entire race, and it still has not been determined.
And this is the time that Shirazi's car starts to pick up that speed a little bit more. He's working lap 9 on his current fuel stint, and you see him officially caught Ross Booth, although going to get the help of a prototype to separate this battle just a little bit. Thankfully, Ross sees that car painted black and green as well.
Indeed, so works in his favor. They got another one, Dominic Dornenberg as well. And he's going to try and wait patiently. He doesn't want to affect this too badly, but this is a good run. Shirazi's a lot closer, and Booth knows it. He covers it first, then he leaves the door open. Shirazi, a rare move into turn 6.
We have a horrible wreck on the front stretch. A car flipping. Oh my God, I think that's Mo Islam. That was, oh my goodness. And Paul Darling off track too for a second, but he's good.
And that's Margarella. That was 2nd place in the GT AMs. Big wreck, unfortunately, for both of them. And to get hit by Eric Thomas, so Thomas got a small piece of it in the process. We definitely want to get a second look at this one.
I'm sure we'll get that queued up here, but right now, this is still the battle for that GT lead, Joe. Shirazi, as close as he's ever been. He took a look down into turn 6 this lap. He also took a look down into turns 10A. Hasn't gotten up alongside. Let me tell you, these are turning some of the fastest laps of the night. 117.9s, 117.8s is what they've put on the board. And trust me, when they're not side by side, they are bumping up against that.
And Young Park has been just let go by them 6 seconds back. They've turned up the afterburners coming down into turn 6 now. It's going to be probably about 3 more laps for these two to try and decide this. Behind them, Robert Tinsey should have a nice easy pass down the back stretch. Shouldn't interrupt it. Sounds like we got that replay of that incident on the front stretch. So here it is. You caught this, Josh. Talk us through it.
He just lost it, got on that inside barrier there, and just messed up his car enough to have it slide out from underneath him, and the next thing you know, he's sideways, and that car just comes and hits him on the side. And boy, that must have been one heck of an onboard shot for him.
Yeah, hope he wasn't in VR because that can make you sick trying to do that. Had a bit of contact between Zach Ginn and Paul Darling. Darling didn't lose another position. He's just trying to get to the finish, so we don't need to go to that because we're getting very close to the end, and you can see just how massive of a wreck that was for Mo Islam to wrap up the season. So as we come back to the battle for P1, now down to less than 3 minutes to go, Shirazi still filling the mirrors of the 03.
I mentioned those lap times. Last lap, Ross Booth, 117.99. Less than a tenth off of his fastest. The cars are getting light on fuel. That temperature's coming down. The lap time's definitely reflecting it.
Keeping an eye on Nathan Olson. At smallest, we got 2 laps to go here, but we could have 3. He crosses the line. Ooh, it's gonna be extremely tight. We're looking at 110 laps for most of these cars. Last one was a 109.2.
Fastest lap of the race right there.
Wow, yeah. So he could sneak by with an extra lap there. And again, if drivers are close on fuel, that can sometimes be a problem, but it depends on if Nathan feels like putting everybody through that. He's got such a huge buffer, he could slow this down.
It's easy to slow it down here and just make it so that it's only 1 lap to go. Depends on what he wants to see here. I don't really see an advantage to going an extra lap for himself. He's got such a wide lead. He doesn't want to make any more trouble for himself. I don't see why he would.
I mean, it depends on how much of a little imp he feels like today, I suppose. If he wants to cause chaos with everybody, for those who did not anticipate the number of laps, he could make it extended. Another one, there's another big look as well from Shirazi, trying to see if he can shake Booth off the line, but no dice. We're coming down to the start-finish line for Olsen, and it's going to be a minute 12 left. That last lap, a 109. I think we're going to have 2 to go here.
And Joe, this might catch some of the GT cars out because you have to factor basically +2 laps depending on where the prototype leader. Here comes Shirazi deep on the brakes into 10A. Ross leaves him room, not this time. However, Joe, you mentioned it. Shirazi making those looks into turn 6. Turn 5 is where Ross continues to have problems. We saw him bounce over the curbs earlier, almost crashed the car. I think Johan is definitely taking notes.
Do you think he's trying to force him to overdrive it through there, make him give up the spot on his own?
I think that, the closer you are into 5 there, the more pressure you're going to apply and then make the move into 6, where Ross has basically not the upper hand with the poor exit out of 5.
18 seconds left. I'm checking in on Olsen. He's coming down to the final chicane. Yeah, as we head up to turn 5, but we're watching just in case Olsen gets held up here. And down to the line, 3 seconds left to go. He crosses, and that was not the checkered flag. That was white flag for him. We'll get 1 extra lap. It was right down to 0 to go, and we're side by side.
Yeah, down the back straightaway, the 2 Porsches, Shirazi and Booth. Although Ross has the advantage being on driver's left right now. Who's going to take it latest on the brakes? They're both pretty even. Do they leave each other room? Yes, they have. All race still side by side, but Ross out in the marbles.
Thing is, do they know that this isn't the last lap? There's still 1 more to go, so Shirazi gets that top spot, but will Booth pull it right back on him?
And they know now. White flag, 1 lap to go. In my opinion, Ross is sitting in the catbird seat. He's going to wait till the back straightaway.
I'm seeing Josh giving us some information. 0.3 of a second to the checkered flag. That's how close Olsen cut it there. In fact, Olsen's coming to the line now. Let's go to our leader, our champion, and our winner in this race. Nathan Olsen caps it off with a victory. Rattray is going to be able to go an extra lap around, but now We need to focus on Shirazi and Booth. They are going to decide it here, but Booth is poor off of turn 7. I think he may have given up his chance, Joey.
Wallen, Shirazi made the move where he needed to. Ross was slow through turn 5, which made this gap, and then you called it slow out of turn 7. This is Shirazi's race to lose.
All he has to do is be smooth from here. What a run from Johan. It is not easy to beat Ross Booth as long as he's clean off this corner, as long as the fuel is okay. And maybe it's not, because here comes Booth. Booth is going to be able to get by, and Shirazi couldn't make it to the line. Booth will still take win number 7.
I did not see that one coming, and that was what I was talking about. You gotta factor for those +2 laps. 1 turn shy, and here comes Robert Rattray. He's going to win GT AM here at Road Atlanta.
Heartbreak for Johan Shirazi. Could have taken the final win, but for Rattray, this is going to be a joy to get another victory out this season at the last call here at Road Atlanta. Fantastic stuff down in the AMs. He basically had control of that AM lead from the get-go.
Yeah, and here you see Luke Schmidt. He already has finished the race, but this is your GT AM champion celebrating with a victory lap right now.
Absolutely. We didn't get to touch on it much. It was the last one to try and wrap up of the overall championships, but Schmidt will be your champion in the AM category for the entire season. We're going to take a look at the results here, and of course, we'll start with those prototypes, Josh. We lost a few of them over the course of it, but at least most of them seemed to find the checkered flag.
Yeah, most of them did. About 10 of those were able to make it to the checkered flag. I just want to point out that 0.3 of a second, that was the difference between whether or not Shirazi got the win or Booth. Isn't that crazy to think? That's just how close that ended up being. We see Nathan Olson, Billy Smith, Paul Darling, Peter Houston, and Dominic Norberg all round out our top 5. Robert Tinsley, Leif Peterson, Eddie Layton, Chris Sherburne, and Carter Kundinger is our 10th place finisher. Mo Islam. Sorry, I was just going to say, Mo Islam still managed to get 11th. How about that?
Yeah, he didn't finish the race, but he was scored as 11th in the end. Ross Booth takes the win. And that's a good point there from Josh Mendoza. That extra lap made the difference. Shirazi would have won if those 0.3 of a second had been slowed up by Nathan Olson. But Johan will get second. They were far enough ahead of Park that he cruised across the line as Park rounds out the podium. Chris Pies with a bit of a quiet 4th place. And then your winner in the AM race, Robert Rattray, 5th overall. How about Bradley Haley with a bit of a quiet 6th out of all the GTs, 5th in his class. Robert Cass was behind him, 7th out of the GTs, and Ryan Robertson, 8th. From there, it was Eric Thomas finishing in the 9th position for the GT cars, and Franco Margarella manages to finish 2nd in the AMs, but 10th in GT. Joey?
Yeah, and then at 11th, you see Luke Schmidt there standing the final step on the podium, but collecting the big trophy of that GT AM championship. Andrew Lunsford coming home 4th in AM, 12th overall in GT. Shane Hunter, Ed Eisenring, Patrick McDaniel 15th in GT overall. Tom Hammond, Jimbo Pfeiffer, Nick Olas, Boyd Payne, and Jason Iverson there in 20th.
Then in 21st position, Zach Ginn, who had a lot of drama, and from pretty much everyone there on down, I do believe that is actually a DNF for everybody that you see here in these last few positions. 44 starters, and we only saw about, I think, 30 of them get to the checkered flag at the end of it. I think we have our champion of the GT Pro category ready to talk to us. Joey has caught up with Ross Booth, who I think himself might consider that one a surprise win.
Ross, did you think you were going to stand on top coming out of turn 10B? Oh, looks like Ross is still waiting to get interviewed. I know that he's still probably celebrating over there, getting calmed down from the end of that race, and I don't blame him one bit. Ross, we got you this time.
Howdy.
So, coming out of turn 10B, Did you think you were going to win this race?
Uh, Man, I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that before. I saw him lift really, really early into 10A. I thought, oh man, I think he's out. So I gassed up and hoped for the best, and we're here.
Yeah, it was a wild finish, and just to let you know how close it was, not only with the fuel running out with Shirazi there, but the prototype leader, Nathan Olson, crossed the line with .358 left on the clock to take that extra lap. So if he had lifted just a little bit, Shirazi would be standing on top. But here we are talking to you, Ross. How does it feel? You already clinched the championship, but you stand on top one more time.
It feels really good. Was fun racing Shirazi the whole season, and today was no less. It was an awesome race between him and I. I was trying to back him up, honestly, to my teammate Park. We were getting really bad traffic and we're battling, and then all of a sudden, young Park was like a couple of seconds back. I'm like, oh man, maybe we can make this a 3-horse race. So playing games with them, and I mean, that's what racing's about.
Well, and Ross, it seems like you're just collecting all the championships over the iRacing various leagues right now. And how has it been be a part of this composite performance team? Because here at Autobahn, there's a ton of black and green cars out there, and we love to see the team representation.
Yeah, we put a lot of effort into our GT program here at Composite Performance. Almost every other Monday, I can't remember how many of us, 8 or 9 of us, are on and in the sim practicing and working on our racecraft and getting better each and every week, and it's showing up in all the leagues that we're in, Autobahn, MTech. And yeah, I'm just really, 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 really happy to see the team grow and be successful.
Well, Ross, you cap it off with a win and a championship here in GT Pro. Who do you have to thank?
We got to start out with Carter. He does an awesome job running Autobahn. Makes some mistakes here and there, but takes it on the chin and gets where we need to go with regards to league. So it's been awesome here. I've been here since the beginning of Autobahn, and it's just been increasingly getting better each and every season. So shout out to him. Shout out to the comp committee. They don't get paid to look at the incidents, and they're just doing it out of the goodness of their heart and out of their free time. So shout out to them. And then shout out to all the guys on Composite Performance. Big thanks to our sponsors, Grid and Sim Labs, for providing us the best sim equipment on the market.
Well, Ross Booth continuing to add to the stats, one of the most winning drivers in all of Autobahn, up to past 18 wins now. Ross, one more time, congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
And up.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, up next, it looks like we've got our champion and third place finisher here for the AM category, the GT AMs. Not only that, also GT AM Endurance champion, Luke Schmidt, ready to talk to us. Luke, I have to confess, we didn't get to cover your race a whole lot. It seemed like dramas kind of put you up on the podium at the end. What was it like for you out there?
I just kind of had a quiet race. That's probably why you guys didn't get around to covering me. I kind of hung in second, then back to third, and hung in third most of the race, and ended up finishing on the podium, which is a good way to cap off a championship. And it was won by consistency, not so much by race win.
Well, I mean, even still, considering the competition amongst your AM competitors, how many other drivers managed to take wins over the course of the season? How do you feel taking both crowns in one go?
It's a huge weight. I felt the pressure going into this one for sure. Didn't have a lot of confidence in the car and won, which didn't make it all that much better. But it's a weight lifted, and I'm ready for the next challenge to move up to pro next year.
And I feel like you should be proud of that achievement. Definitely well earned. So, the other question, though, speaking of moving to pro, I saw some chatter about whether or not the cars may be changed next season. What cars do you have your eye on that you'd like to see Autobahn use?
Well, the obvious answer would be add the GTP, but I've always been a GT3 driver, and I kind of like driving those cars the most. And I'd be looking to stay in that if possible, but if not, we'll take whatever challenge comes next.
Well, again, we look forward to seeing you back. Congratulations. Go celebrate, sir.
Thanks, guys. Thanks to Grid, SimLab, Carter, Composite Performance, everyone, and thanks to you guys.
And I believe we have our winner in the prototypes. If Josh has caught up with Nate Olson, who had something of a quiet race, I guess you could say.
Nathan Olson brings it home in first here after, well, just I think nothing less of a dominating performance. Nathan, what did you see out there? What did you need to do to I don't know, get more dominant? It looks like you could just do anything you wanted out there.
Yeah, initially, my idea was just to chill and coast into every turn and just take it easy because it's an hour and a half long race. That's pretty much what I did. The first round of traffic was pretty tight, so Paul closed in. But as we went through more and more traffic, the gap opened up, and I just continued to be consistent and drive a clean race. And at the end there, I picked up the pace to try to get a best lap, and it showed. My fastest lap was like 4 laps to the end.
Yeah, we saw you set that fastest lap on there, even called it out. It was an impressive performance. Now, early on in the race, you had that wreck that kind of happened right in front of you. Would that make you feel like you had to just get going after you saw that happen, or was that just another little roadblock on the way to success?
I think it was just a little roadblock. When I was looking at the gap behind, and it stayed the same. Like the lap time at the end of that lap was the same. I was like half a tenth quicker or something like that. So it didn't really phase me at all. Just continued on like it never happened.
Well, there you go. You got the prototype championship already locked up before we're going into this, and now you have the Enduro Cup added to your name. Well, who do you have to thank to get to that place?
I'll definitely have to thank Dion. He is the maker of the setups that I use, and he's also just been a great mentor for me. He's taught me a lot of things, and I'm really, really thankful for all that he's done, as well as Daniel Morad for giving me the platform to do better, the team to race with, all that, and then my dad. He's given me support, outside of racing, and he's given me a lot of the equipment that I use. So just them guys really made me who I am.
Well, there you go. There you hear it. The newly crowned Enduro Cup Proto Champion and Proto Champion of overall. Joe.
It looks like we have, I thought we were going to talk to Robert Rattray here for a moment. Instead, we're going to be talking to Carter Kundinger instead. Carter is the organizer of the league, as we mentioned, who's fighting for second in the championship. And I know that's not the way that you want it to end, but I have to say you impressed us, Carter, with the way that you got back out on track, even though the race was effectively over for you.
Yeah, I mean, for the LMP2 championship, I knew that I would have really needed Billy to hit some bad luck this race. So him not really finding any bad luck and him finishing second didn't really matter. But I had to have the team championship in mind, and because my VR headset ended up going out. I don't know if I messaged a couple of you guys, told you guys that, but I knew I needed to basically just come right back in. And usually I will almost never just give up on a race unless my car is completely toast and I'm not able to get back in the race. So it was definitely a challenge being a VR driver trying to go back to the single monitor. I was trying to figure out where my surroundings were for like the entire time out there, but no, it's this league is just super fun. I mean, even if you're not fighting for something that race, I mean, just being out there with all the traffic and all those guys, honestly, that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Composite Performance Iceman is indeed the champions in the team's championship. How does that feel to wrap that one up?
Oh, that's awesome, Joe. I mean, it's in Autobahn, it's a big thing to win a team's championship at Autobahn, and with as you probably know or remember, with the satellite domination that has been the team championship the past few years, it's nice to see a new name up there. Although we did steal a satellite driver from them, but it doesn't matter. It's under a new name, so just really, really happy for the team. I mean, me and Ross, and we understood that we were going to have to carry a load, especially with him being a platinum rated driver, and us being forced to have a bronze driver with us. And I think Jake at the beginning of the season, then Jason. Really, I mean, they did all they needed to do, right? Just keep finishing races. And Jason started really heating up at the end of the season too. Had some unfortunate events tonight, which kind of put him back. But I mean, just it's the team championship. That's awesome. Still waiting for my drivers championship. I guess I'll have to keep working on that. But no, I mean, props to Nathan, props to Billy. They had a great season for both of them.
And I talked to Luke a little bit about the potential changes that could be coming in the series, and with you kind of being where the buck stops, what are your thoughts moving forward? I know you're going to take into account what everybody would like and what's good for the series, but you personally, what would you like to see happen?
Yeah, I mean, Autobahn has always kind of basically simulated IMSA since like season 4 roughly. I mean, it's we've been an IMSA based league, so with the LMDH coming out mid-season and then the just recent announcement of the LMP3 coming in June, I'll be busy trying to figure out what would be best for the league. So I've got a few ideas in my head, just trying to figure out what will get us, what will bring us full fields all season, right? I mean, that's really the goal. That's the fun of Autobahn, is not normally are you able to get into an iRacing race and there's 60 other cars on track. Like that's insane. And everyone racing clean, everyone having fun, and so it will definitely be interesting. Definitely look out. Lots of things to think about. I think we can almost for surely say this will probably be the last time only 2 car classes will be in Autobahn. Whether we're going to have 3 or 4, I guess time will only tell. So I guess we'll just see what happens,
Well, again, we can't thank you enough for bringing us on to cover it. It's one of the greatest joys of a series to get to call, just because it is so much fun and so chaotic out there sometimes. Carter, congratulations on the team's championship. Congratulations on a great series, and we hope to talk to you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate all of you, Joe, Joey, Zach, Michael. God, even Soup was there for a bit. I mean, it felt really good to have, I guess, the original gang back, right? Who always has broadcasted Autobahn. So it's really made the broadcast fun to watch. I mean, it's I go back and I'll watch them 1, 2, 3 times, just because you guys put on such a great show. And I will have to say, a little shout out to you, Joe. I turned on the GR Cup race this weekend and I heard a familiar voice and I was like, oh, this is pretty sweet. So super cool that you're getting into the real world, and getting gigs like that. So, but yeah, I mean, thank you guys. FTF was great. We definitely will be discussing a future with you guys for next season and beyond. So I appreciate it.
Awesome stuff, and thank you very much. It was a joy getting to call the GR Cup cars. That was Carter Kundinger. Not really finished to write home about with 10th, but still a team's championship and another season done. Also, before we take off, we want to remind you that the ModernRacingPrince.com FTF1 series is back with the 2023 US 500. That'll be April 21st and 22nd. Join our Discord for registration and more information. Thank you again for joining us this season, and thank you to the team, Joey, Josh, and Zach. I'm Joe Peak, and until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.